We begin in France, where centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron will be the country's next president. He defeated the National Front's Marine Le Pen with 65% of the vote. Macron has called his victory a new page for the country. CGTN's Parkinson reports from Paris.
As French President-elect Emmanuel Macron arrived at the iconic pyramid of Paris's Musée du Louvre, the moment was full of symbolism. Beethoven's Ode to Joy is the anthem of the European Union, a fitting choice for a man who ran his campaign on a strong pro-European platform.
L'Europe et le monde attendent que nous
Europe and the world are waiting for us to defend anything with our spirit of light, threatened by all kinds of places. They expect us to defend the liberties, that we protect the oppressed.
Les libertés, que nous protégions les opprimés.
Many in France are celebrating not only Macron's win, but also the defeat of his far-right rival Marine Le Pen. But Macron chided his supporters for booing at the mention of her name and instead urged the country to come together.
Je veux enfin avoir un mot pour ceux
I want to see a word for those who voted for Madame Le Pen today. Don't boo them. They expressed a form of anger today, a disillusionment in our convictions. I respect them, but I will do everything I can over the next 5 years to make sure there is no more reason to vote for the extremes.
But uniting France will not be easy. Le Pen's score is still an historic high for France's far right, and as she conceded defeat, she also claimed the mantle of France's main opposition.
Through this historic, massive result, the French people have elected this patriotic and Republican alliance as the primary opposition.
Macron acknowledged that the task facing him is immense and said he will start work immediately. But for now, at least, there is time to celebrate and reflect on his incredible journey to the Élysée Palace. What Emmanuel Macron has done is remarkable. 3 years ago, hardly anyone in France had even heard of him. A year ago, his political movement, En Marche, didn't even exist. But now, he's the president of France, the youngest president the country has ever had. Kate Parkinson, CGTN, Paris.
Let's get you updates on that now. And Richard Bestic is live for us in Paris. Richard, France now has a new president, one who's relatively young. Does this indicate a break from the past and a new start with the youth taking charge of critical affairs of the country?
Well, this morning the president-elect has been on ceremonial duty with the incumbent, the outgoing president Francois Hollande, laying a wreath at the Arc de Triomphe, at the tomb of the unknown soldier, marking Liberation Day here, which is effectively the end of World War II. It was interesting to see the two men coming together, the old guard on his way out and the new man coming in. You heard there from Kate just how unprecedented this triumph from Macron is. He is the youngest president ever, or at least he will be when brought into office. He is the youngest in the history of the French Republic. His party, En Marche, that has only existed for a year, and he has effectively sidelined the traditional establishment parties of power. But with all those successes come problems as well, because he has now to find some friends, some allies inside the National Assembly so that he can push through his reforms of the economy, reforms for the European Union. He will want to see those in, but he won't be able to do it on his own. He'll need some kind of base inside the National Assembly. There's one other problem he's got coming down the track: elections for that French Parliament. He hasn't got, because his party is only a year old, he hasn't got a strong organisation in the country. He'll have to get that in place pretty quickly if he's to replicate the success of his triumph in the race for the presidency, in the race for seats in the National Assembly, the French Parliament. It's good news for now, but he faces problems down the road. Benina.
Well, Richard, there was a keen interest from Africa on the French election. So now that we have Macron as the president-elect, what should the continent expect from his presidency?
I believe expect continuity, Penina. He has made a variety of statements on Bashar al-Assad, for example, the president of Syria. He says the man is a war criminal and should be brought to account for his crimes against humanity. So no change there in the relationship with Syria, and as a consequence, no change in the cool relationship with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin. France's foreign aid budget. Macron is on record as saying that he wants to see an increase in that budget. At the same time, he wants a review of France's military commitments across Africa. His view is that the countries of Africa should actually be taking more autonomy, have more autonomy and take more charge of their own defence. You remember during the campaign, Penina, when he caused controversy saying that France's colonial history was a war, was a crime against humanity? Well, that might actually indicate a new relationship with this leading European state and the nations of Africa, one more of equality. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays in to the European Union's trade relationship with the nations of the African continent. It's important. The European Union, often regarded as fortress EU, will Macron be able to help trade between France, between the European Union and the African nations? There's one more thing to be said here, Penina. Actually, this man, Macron, is so new, so unprecedented. There's very little known about his policies in detail. He published his manifesto only in March, but even so, a number of important areas of this complex economy here in France were glossed over. There are a lot of people waiting to see how it will roll out, and in particular, how it will roll out in relationship to other centres of economic power, including, of course, Africa.
Richard, great as always speaking to you. Thank you for joining us. Richard Bestek live for us in Paris.